All right. Hello, everybody. So in this video lecture, we're going to kind of walk through Commencement Speech on Kindness by George Saunders. So if you have not yet read Commencement Speech on Kindness, I would encourage you to pause this video, go read Commencement Speech on Kindness, think about it, and then come back. You're going to get far, far, far more out of this video if you've already read that text and kind of tried to think about what Saunders is doing and why, and done your own sort of informal rhetorical analysis. The purpose is for us to walk through this and sort of begin that initial stage of rhetorical analysis in a more formal way than we've done maybe in other video lectures. So let's just start with George Saunders. And we'll kind of go through this in terms of the SOAP acronym, so speaker, occasion, audience, and purpose. Now, some of you, you saw the picture on the previous page, but some of you are like, who the hell is George Saunders and why do I care? Which I think is a good question and an important question, and one we should often be asking. So George Saunders, he says he is an old fart and an author, but let's unpack that a little bit more. And in here, I just pulled from Wikipedia. I know that we often say as instructors, don't use Wikipedia, but all I'm trying to do is get a general background to give you a little bit of context. And as far as I know, this is accurate. So, born 1958, he's an American writer of short stories, essays, novellas, children's books, and novels. His writing has appeared in The New Yorker, Harper's, McSweeney's, and GQ. He also contributed to a weekly column, American Psyche, to the Guardian's Weekend magazine between 2006 and 2008. Now, I also happen to know he is a very well-known writer, and he has a lot of books, some of which I have read, and he's kind of a humorous type of writer, which if you've read Commencement Speech on Kindness, you can get a sense of his humor there. Okay, so now we know who he is. He's pretty famous. He's written for some really impressive places. He's published a lot of books. So he is an accomplished writer. Now, the occasion is a commencement speech. So again, I pulled this from Wikipedia, just a definition, right? In the United States, a commencement speech or commencement address is a speech given to graduating students, generally at a university, although the term is also used for secondary education institutions and in similar institutions around the world. So what we have to realize is this is a giant ceremony in which all of the college graduates are going to be receiving their diplomas. They're wearing their robes and their funny little hats. Their families are around, instructors, faculty, all of those people are there to celebrate the 4 or more years these students have been studying, and now they're graduating. Now, part of it in this specific case is this was in 2013. So again, we have to think about our current mindset. It is 2025. So we have 10, 12 years here of elapsed time. In 2013, the president of the US was Barack Obama. The unemployment rate was relatively low. The economy was relatively strong. We were pre-COVID. We were pre-AI. So there are a lot of sort of things that are different even within a decade, 10 years of time, that shift how a message is delivered or how it's received. Now, the audience is the primary audience is college graduates. I already mentioned that there were other people there, friends, family members, partners, faculty, administrative staff, all of those things. But Saunders is talking specifically to the college graduates. So we have to take into account things like the specific university. So it's Syracuse University. And so again, these are college students, probably 22, 23. Syracuse University itself is ranked 73 out of 436 U.S. universities, according to U.S. News and World Report. So that's pretty good, right? They're in the upper quarter of universities in the United States. They have an acceptance rate of 41%. And I'm telling you this just to, again, give you a little bit of context. The University of Washington has an acceptance rate of 42.5%, meaning they accept 42.5% of the people that apply, whereas somewhere like Stanford has an acceptance rate of 3.9%. So, again, for those of you that are planning on transferring and you're thinking UW's a really hard school to get into, Syracuse is very similar. So it's a competitive university. Now, we could also think about other things. There's a lot of other factors that we might take into account, one of which is the size of the school. So in 2023, the total population of students was about 23,000. And I know this is 10 years after the speech was given, but probably ballpark is right. And again, by comparison, the University of Washington is about twice as large. So you've got a school that, just for us to contextualize, is smaller than the university and just a little bit more competitive. There are other things that we could look into as well in terms of audience. We could look at gender. We could look at socioeconomic status. We could look at race, ethnicity, ability, all of those things which would factor into this, but that's a little bit deeper of a dive than I want to do. I just want to give you the sense that Saunders is maybe talking in a broader sense, a sort of secondary audience to any college graduate, but he was delivering this speech at a very specific time in a very specific place, right? And so he knew it's 2013 graduate ceremony at Syracuse University. I am talking to these students in 2013. So his overall goal, obviously it's in the title, right, is to promote kindness. And that's his whole speech, right? Sometimes graduation speakers, commencement speakers will talk about hard work or, future development or things like that. He chose, value-wise, to focus on trying to get recent graduates to be kinder to themselves and others. Now, if we start to think about strategies, what does Saunders do to try to get his audience on board, in agreement with this idea that we should all be kinder, right? So we have some observations we could make. He uses these asides, right? At the very beginning, he talks about somebody being invited to share their wisdom. And he says, that would be me, and people that are going to be the audience, that would be you. So he is, at the very outset, drawing his audience in, addressing them directly, creating a rapport, right? A connection. It also creates a more informal feeling, even though we're at this big celebration, lots of pomp and circumstance, right? All these robes and things like that. He's making it a little bit more casual, a little bit more personal. He also brings in his personal experience, things like skinny dipping in a river in Sumatra, right? Establishing himself as relatable, because he also talks then about getting incredibly sick. And then he starts to talk about things that he doesn't regret. And we can think about what this does, right? It sets up this idea that regret is part of life, and we all have things we regret. But when he thinks about all of the things that he regrets or doesn't regret, what does he regret most? And that sets us up. It brings us in because we start wondering, hey man, this guy has done a lot of things. He doesn't regret any of those. What does he really regret? And that allows him to deliver this sort of payoff or climactic moment where he talks about this girl, Ellen, and not being nice to her. He wasn't mean to her. He didn't call her names. His one big regret is he just wasn't nice to her. So the reason for that is to show that sometimes it's not action, but sometimes inaction that we might regret, right? And I think because of the way that he delivers it, because he sets this up personally, the audience likely would be thinking, what do I regret? And when could I have been kinder? When could I have been nicer to other people? Oops. So come on, computer. Oh, I thought I had more there. I did have more there. Oh, there we go. Verdict: successful or unsuccessful. So something that we should be thinking about when we do a rhetorical analysis is kind of that final verdict. And it might not be just successful or unsuccessful. It might be mostly successful or largely unsuccessful along a spectrum. But when we're doing a rhetorical analysis, especially to help ourselves become better persuaders, we want to think about, was that appropriate? Was that effective for that circumstance, right? Again, kind of going back to backpacks and briefcases. Was it a successful or effective choice to wear jeans and a t-shirt to your job interview at a law firm, or whatever, right? So we have to think about whether the choices we made were appropriate for the circumstance. And I would say, from my point of view, as a sort of tertiary, a third future audience that's not his specific intended audience, I'd say that he was successful from my point of view. And I would also say that he was most likely successful in the moment. Does that mean that everybody left the commencement and was automatically nicer to everybody? No. But trying to get, 5,000 or 6,000 people to do anything consistently is a challenge, right? I would say that the fact that he has a small audience of enthusiastic young people emerging into a strong economy at a school that's known for sort of civic engagement and a sense of community, he's probably successful. He's made a good personal appeal to his audience. He's established that strong sense of rapport, and he's not asking them to do anything incredibly difficult. He's asking them to do something very simple, which is to be a little bit kinder. And that's easy enough to do. A kind word, a kind gesture. So as we think about the rhetorical analysis, this is the sort of pre-writing or pre-thinking that we're going to need to do. Really thinking about speaker, occasion, audience, purpose. The speaker isn't just George Saunders. It's George Saunders, who's a well-known writer, who is going to be the commencement speaker. I believe he went to Syracuse University, so he's an alumni. Occasion, all of those things that come together to allow somebody to be either effective or ineffective in a rhetorical situation. All right, so there you go. If you have questions, comments, concerns, jokes, memes, or recipes, please let me know. Otherwise, I will talk to you all later.